Now, Iran says it has reached an understanding with the United States on the main principles to resolve the dispute over its nuclear program. Both sides expressed some optimism after a second round of indirect talks that also took place in Geneva. Washington insists Tehran cannot have a nuclear weapon and warns that military action is still an option if a deal isn't made. U.S. Vice President JD Vance told American media that Iran is not ready to acknowledge Washington's red lines.
The President of the United States is very much trying to find a solution here, whether it's through diplomatic options or through another option that means that the Iranians cannot have a nuclear weapon. That has always been the main focus. If you go back to the campaign that he ran in 2015, the Republican primary campaign that he won, he said Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I think it's very important for the American people to appreciate it's one of the most hostile and also one of the most irrational regimes in the world. You can't have people like that have the most dangerous weapon known to man. It would be awful for our security. It would be awful for the future of our children. That is the goal of the President of the United States, and he's got a lot of options and a lot of tools to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, you heard from the U.S. Vice President there. Now here's the Iranian President, Masoud Pezeshkian. He repeated that Tehran is not seeking to build a nuclear weapon, but he says his country should be allowed to pursue nuclear technology for civilian purposes.
We are prepared for verification to take place in whatever form they may require. However, we do not accept that we should be prevented from using nuclear science and knowledge to address our illnesses and to advance our industry and agriculture. How clearly must we say that we are not pursuing nuclear weapons and will not do so? If they truly want Iran not to possess nuclear weapons, we're ready to undertake any form of verification they require together.
Al Jazeera's Resul Serdar is in Tehran for more on this. So, Resul, there is no promise of another meeting yet between the U.S. and Iran. And you told us earlier that the two sides are going to have to start putting things on paper, right? What's the process going to be moving forward?
There have been a measured progress in the second round, and both sides are expressing a cautious optimism. However, here, so the Iranian technical team is saying that they are going to work on some of the some proposals, some points that the Americans are demanding. So the main aim for that is to bridge the gap between the two countries' positions. So Americans are asking for lots of technical details, and also they, in some cases, according to Iranians, they are having some unrealistic demands. But Iranians are saying that they are ready for the compromises, and in the next 2 weeks, a technical, legal, and political team is going to work on that. And then that paper is going to be sent to the Americans, and back and forth between the two parties. Once both parties agreed that now they have a sufficient paper, then there will be the third round of the talks. As of now, the venue of the talks, the date is not set. It depends on how fast this process is going to go. But as I said, the gap between the two is still huge. Iranians are saying that they are ready to reduce the level of the uranium enrichment to 1.5%, which is at the moment is over 60%, and they're saying that they're ready to reduce the number of the centrifuges and also shipping the enriched uranium to a third country, but also giving the full access to the International Atomic Energy Agency for the inspection of Iran's nuclear facilities, and also they are offering American companies and firms to come to Iran and to invest in oil, gas, and mining industry. However, the USA is saying zero enrichment, and Iran's missile program must be limited, and also the US is asking Iran to distance itself from its proxies across the region, and Iranians say, well, these terms are unacceptable by Tehran. So that's why this gap is quite difficult to be bridged.
Resul Serdar reporting from the Iranian capital. Thank you very much, Resul. Let's bring in Mostafa Khoshcheshm. He's a professor at the University of Applied Sciences. And Mostafa, you're joining us from Tehran. It's good to have you on the program. What do you take away from this second round of talks, or at least what we know about it publicly?
Hi, and thanks for having me. Well, so far, the two sides have come into terms, as you just mentioned. They've come into terms with each other over guiding principles, the general points. Well, that could be seen very cautiously as optimistic move forward, but there is a lot ahead. It's a bumpy road. If we just remember that last time we were in the talks 10 months ago, after 5 rounds, they were scheduling the 6th round when Donald Trump and Israel started bombarding Iran. So Iranians are very much cautious, and they are very much cautious of the future meetings. We should wait and see, especially considering that Donald Trump has always been a disloyal person, especially when it comes to Iran. He was the guy who discarded the JCPOA, and he is not a very stable person, especially in talks and in negotiations. As he has prescribed in his book, Art of the Deal, he values this kind of feature, and he believes that you should not remain stable in the talks. You should move around in order to, confuse the opposite side. So altogether, this could cautiously be said, positive first start, but we still should wait for future meetings.
Iran has publicly sought some assurance that if they move towards a deal, number one, they won't be attacked like they were last year. And number two, if then there is a deal, that deal won't be broken by the U.S. in the future, as Donald Trump did in 2018 when he pulled out of the previous nuclear deal. So how is it possible for Iran to get that kind of reassurance?
Very good question. Actually, these are the two soft points that we also think about. The last time we were in the talks with Joe Biden administration, we had worked out 40 types of guarantees and assurances in 4 main categories: legal categories, nuclear categories, as well as political and economic categories. Half of them could be done, actually, or were promised to be done by the Americans, but they stopped short of, promising about the other half, the second half. When it comes to Donald Trump, I don't believe that he's going to do so. He's going to give any kind of assurances, and that's one of the main worries for Iranians, because there is a meager chance for an agreement. Even if there will be an agreement, still we do believe that Donald Trump is a very disloyal person and he would not keep up his word. So that's why Iranians insist that there should be some kind of economic venture or some kind of economic work by the two sides, like investment in Iranian, probably oil or the air sector. But this is very difficult because the United States primary sanctions on American and American entities is way harsher and stricter than its secondary sanctions on other nations. So that makes it very difficult. Still, there could be a way out for such a move. There could be some kind of, complicated mechanisms to be worked out to ensure that Americans and Iranians will find some kind of joint interests. So that could be one of the assurances that to ensure the future of any deal if we eventually come into terms with each other over an agreement.
Mostafa, it's interesting what you bring to our attention, that from Iran's point of view, one way to ensure that the U.S. can't back out of a potential deal, right, hypothetically speaking, is if there are deeper business ties between the U.S. and Iran, and then the U.S. would have a disincentive to not only attack Iran, but also pull out of an agreement. Mostafa Khoshcheshm, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.